Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly Magic News Update for April 30th, 2017 on the Mana Leak. I'm John as always, and it was a slow but big news week, I'll say. Amonkhet was of course released on Friday, and there wasn't too much news to go with that, except of course the banned list, and a few other things that we'll get to first. Up first, just a quick little fluff piece. Loading Ready Run has released the latest Friday Nights. If you're not familiar with them, Loading Ready Run is a fantastic internet comedy video troupe based out of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and they do great stuff. And one of the things they do is a series of videos called Friday Nights for Wizards of the Coast, where they play very heavily fictionalized versions of themselves, playing Magic and kind of promoting the latest set. The videos don't necessarily come out with any sort of regularity. It's all up to Wizards sponsorship and when they request them, etc. But yes, they are still making them, and the newest one, Amonkhet, is up on the official Wizards YouTube account. You can find a link in the show notes as well as in the sidebar. And I strongly recommend going back and watching the back catalog as well. Up next, we might maybe be getting core sets again, but be careful with that statement. There was a survey that's been shared around asking about the potential names for a, quote, baseline set focused on the fundamental evergreen themes and mechanics of the game. The three names suggested were Prime 2019, Core 2019, or Essential 2019. Now, be warned, this is literally all we know about this. Perhaps core sets are a sure thing for 2019, but this could also just be the earliest part of an exploration into the feasibility of bringing them back. This could be something entirely different. It could be pre-constructed decks. It could be a very small band-aid set to keep cards in standard, or to, help not have as many bans by printing, answers here and there as they pop up as necessary. Or it could simply be nothing. It could be them releasing a survey, and over the next couple of years they go, no, we don't really need a core set. So please keep this in mind. Before you start posting on the internet for the next 2 years, oh yeah, we're totally getting a core set in 2019. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. Nobody outside of Wizards of the Coast knows that. So please remember that there could be a million different possibilities for this little snippet of news. It is a cool little snippet of news, but don't reach and then tell people conclusions as though they are fact. I think that is really the motto of these weekly news updates. Finally, there were some bannings that happened. First up, Top, Sensei's Divining Top, was banned in Legacy. There's a deck called Miracles that uses Top and Counterbalance to basically counter, preferably, every single spell that your opponent tries to cast, which isn't terribly fun and makes for arguably what was one of the best decks in Legacy. Wizards was hoping that over time there would be answers found and other decks found to combat that. Didn't really happen, so they decided they needed to take action. Now, Top has always had a giant target on it. It's been banned in many other formats because it's slow. You shuffle dozens of more times in a game of Magic with the Top than you do in any other way, and it delays tournaments. It is horrible for coverage. It's just a really bad card when it comes to watching Magic. Even when it comes to playing Magic, there's nothing worse than sitting there just watching your opponent shuffle and shuffle and shuffle and shuffle. And so Top has been banned from Legacy to join the other places that it's already been banned from. Maybe now I can finally get one into my Cube at a reasonable price, because Cube is a place where it's not too bad. Moving on over to Vintage, Gitaxian Probe and Gush were restricted in Vintage, the only place that actually uses the restricted list, meaning that you can only have one copy of these cards in your deck as opposed to 4. Monastery Mentor decks were doing very well in Vintage, Monastery Mentor being a card that makes a 1/1 token with prowess every time you cast a non-creature spell, and Gitaxian Probe and Gush, of course, being virtually free spells to draw cards, to create tokens, to draw more cards that were free to cast more spells, to make more tokens, blah 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 blah. Something had to be done. And so they restricted Gush and Gitaxian Probe. You can still play them, but you can only play one of them, and that should slow down these Mentor decks just a little bit. Gitaxian Probe, of course, has been banned in Modern very recently because it's a very good card. Drawing a card for free is really good. 2 life is meaningless. And Gush comes from that era where they decided to try cards that were virtually free after a certain point of the game, and they discovered was a broken mechanic. Thankfully, we don't see that anymore, and we'll be seeing a whole lot less of these in Vintage. Finally, nothing was banned in Standard. On Monday, anyways. A couple days later, Felidar Guardian finally got the ban hammer in Standard. The Infinite combo is dead. This happened after the announcement, as they then had a couple of days worth of Magic Online League data, because Amonkhet was released on Monday. And they used that data to make the call, because that data showed Saheeli decks were winning 40 to 50% of all leagues. Now, I'm totally fine with this ban. It's going to open up Standard really wide, assuming Mardu Vehicles doesn't just take over for good now. However, I would have liked to have seen a week of Amonkhet paper matches, you know, maybe even a GP. I would have liked to have seen what Amonkhet could have done to it. There were a lot of naysayers and doomsayers that, oh, format's dead, we know this already, without even ever having played it, and that is the kind of stuff that I hate in the Magic community. I would have liked to have seen real data. MTGO is close to real data. I have a couple of problems with that. Cheap decks get very overrepresented, and Saheeli's Copycat combo was one of the cheaper decks that did well. For example, when I started playing Magic, there was a Red Deck Wins deck that was barely in Tier 1. Didn't really have that many tournament finishes at GPs or Star City Opens or etc. However, it was hands down the most winningest of decks on Magic Online, and the reason is that it was the cheapest. There are grinders on Magic Online who simply want to play the deck that costs the cheapest but wins enough. They don't necessarily want to play the best deck, because the best deck is often a little bit too expensive and they lose a bit of money that they could potentially make that way. And so I'm not a fan of MTGO data to inform paper tournaments. But of course, we are in this weird world where both MTGO and paper tournaments use all the same everything. So I guess ultimately it has to be used that way. However, I would significantly prefer paper data to be used, real big tournaments, as opposed to MTGO. Anyways, as I said, I'm fine with the ban. Something was going to be done sooner or later. I just would have liked to have seen what Amonkhet could have done. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the news this week. There wasn't too much. Let me know what you thought of the news with this week. Let me know what you thought of all these stories. Did I miss any that were big? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at TheManaLeak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeak, Twitch.tv/TheManaLeak, and Patreon.com/TheManaLeak if you want to become a backer there and help keeping all of these various videos going. As always, click that thumbs up button if you like the content. It really helps new people find me. Click subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time.